Spring, the favourite time in the hardy planter's year, and this is what it should look like. Snowdrops, daffodils. But 2020 was a little bit different. Instead of this, we got this. And sometimes even this. Instead of tables full of plants, we got shelves full of nothing. But we weren't going to let this sort of stuff get us down. If we couldn't go to the show had better come to us. And so it was that the lockdown gallery was born. We would send in pictures to our website so that we could see, we could share, and we could stay at home. From week 1 of lockdown, the 23rd of March, we started to build our gallery. Here are the first few tentative entries. As April began, the gallery really got going. Karine was just about to get her new garden landscaped when COVID came along and the job was stopped. You can see she's making the best of it though with these lovely pots. Kath Rochelle is new to the group. She weighed in with this lovely sunset. It was a chilly week, that week in early April, but doesn't the garden look fine? Diane was enjoying these wonderful daffodils, which she wouldn't normally see because at this time of year they're normally away. Just one little silver lining there. Pat explained that this upright myrtle spurge actually turns tomato red in the south of France, its native land, but it doesn't do that in North Yorkshire. Still very handsome though, isn't it? And 2 lovely magnolias, Atlas and Scented Gem, were on show in Peter Williams' garden. Preston became a regular of the lockdown gallery. Here there's a fine display of daffodil Peeping Tom. Sue Gray's attempts to get this Amalantia to flower for Easter were the subject of a very entertaining blog. And here Ficaria Brazen Hussy blends beautifully with Daffodil W.P. Milner. Here Low Sun highlights the buds of Epimedium rubrum. Judith said this euphorbia was rather gaudy but would calm down later. And look, it did. Anne Lowe's camellia owes this luxuriant appearance to her goat, which pruned it enthusiastically whenever it escaped. Diane owes her Trillium success to Carl Denton's magic leaf mould. Looks good. But Anne Fritchley didn't reveal the secret of her success with this beautiful Trillium Corybaceae. And Preston offered this Pulmonaria augustifolia as being a great plant for difficult places. I've got plenty of those. This is Peonia Moscovici, Molly the Witch. Sue Gray found it in David Barnes's garden. She's messing with our minds here with a pink form. Yes, there is such a thing. Judith Edmonds' camellia, just like Anne's, is very old, probably more than 30 years, having lived in a pot in her parents' garden. It's probably camellia donation, but she's not sure. Judith Ladley showed us 2 euphorbias in a pot with Hebe James Sterling. The bright yellow one, Euphorbia polychroma, is her absolute favourite, and for her, it self-seeds gently, much to the annoyance of Jill Evans apparently. Pat Hunter hit on this great idea of finding all the peonies in the garden and taking a picture of each one on the same day in order to see how they compare and contrast. Of course, it's usually the flowers of a peony that take all the attention, but look, the leaves are really very nice too. The variety of this dwarf lilac is unknown, but it was a bargain from the HPS auction. Flowers again in autumn too. Anzacer shirasawanum was cut down just 2 years ago, but hasn't it bounced back beautifully? This is Anemone lipsiensis pallida. Kate says it took about 5 years to bulk up like this. Joyce Kenny was enjoying her hostas before the slugs got to them. Look, not a hole in sight. Erythroniums were the subject of our plant of the month. This beauty from Pat is Joanna. Confusingly, Sue Gray's early sensation clematis is a little late this year. This is Preston's rhododendron luteum, his favourite scent in the whole of the plant world. And Denise is in raptures over this delivery, over 100 perennials from Knaresborough Market. Judith Edmonds has never had a rose flower this early before. It's Rosa Margaret Merrill. This is Catherine Hill's first contribution to the Lockdown Gallery. It's Iris Raja. It was a Mother's Day present from the Daleside Nursery's Killing Hall. Very nice too. And sticking with the iris theme, this one is appropriately named Cute or What. Kate says this large hosta Liberty is resistant to slugs. Now that's worth knowing. Brian found this little beauty under a heap of daylilies. They had to go. It is, of course, Geum lemon drops. David Barnes gave Sue this lovely peony Clair de Lune. It was one of the plants used at our Chelsea 2010 display. And it's not just pretty, it's also useful. It's holding the fence up, apparently. Preston says this is a very small magnolia, but has wonderfully large flowers. See what he means. Denise Dyson bought a new camera and immediately turned in some very fine results, including this one, of Viola True Blue and Heuchera Lime Marmalade. Judith showed how well Begonia pepper askins goes with those young green leaves of the ostrich feather fern. Maggie got this lovely little geranium nodosum from Judith Ladley at Friday Forum. And then Hackett was delighted with this raffle prize, Lamprocapnos Valentine. And now as we come to the end of May, it's certainly been a very dry spring. Preston Harrison showed what his garden was looking like. But for all that, his plants seem to be flourishing. And now we're coming into that lovely time of year when the peonies are flowering. This one from Maggie is Buckeye Bell. Denise is still going well with that camera. Look at this, a delicious dark clematis against the background of Choicea Sundance. And Fritchley solved a mystery. People wanted to know, what's this weed? Actually, it's a vegetable, Tragopogon porifolius, the vegetable oyster, or salsify. It's also known as Jack Go to Bed at Noon because its flowers close up at midday. Top detective work. This Clematis Gladys Packard had been growing in Kate Van Heel's garden for many years without flowering. Then she cracked the puzzle. It's a type 2, not a type 3. So once the pruning was right, it flowered in all its glory. Week 11 saw a first entry from Kathy Howard. Kathy had been doing a brilliant job of a quiz on the website. This is Astrantia Dove Cottage Darkest. Lovely. Pat Hunter scored a notable success with that trickiest of plants, the Meconopsis, the Himalayan poppy. It's shown here with Iris sibirica, Summer Skies. This is Iris Holden Clough, which was given to Diane by Brenda Evans and is now popping up everywhere. Why wouldn't you want that? Maggie Uden's Rose Blush Noisette flowers all summer long. Doesn't it look good? Talking of Holden Clough, this was given to us by Peter Foley, who used to run the Holden Clough nursery. This is Phytuma spicata. We visited his garden as part of the Shade and Woodland Group Day Out in 2017. It was pouring with rain, but when we asked him what this plant was, he just dug one up and gave it to us. Very kind man. Diane brightened up the dull weather with this unusual oriental poppy called Turken Louis. Judith Edmonds offered this unusual dark-stemmed conservation plant. It's Iris Dark Aura. Here's Judy Barton's first entry into the gallery. It's a dwarf, slow-growing Thalictrum, but Judy isn't sure if it's Ichangensi or Cusianum. And here's another plant of uncertain name. Sue thinks it was sold as Anemone lavellii, but could it be Rivulare? And as the weather improved, there's lovely Crinodendron hookerianum flowered in Anne Fritchley's garden. Here's a fine pairing of Alstroemeria Etna and the classic peony Sarah Bernhardt. Liz Hall found a bit of unauthorized fasciation going on here. This should be Primula Harlow-Carr hybrid. Ooh. We picked up this violet slipper orchid at the AGM at Bishop Burton in 2019, Jovelana violacea. We keep it in a pot and bring it in winter, but it does seem quite tough. Joyce says this Astrantia, Star of Billions, is John's absolute favourite. And Judith wants to make clear that Senecio vira is not named after a certain virus. Always dies over winter when I try to grow it there. Sue's Dactylorhiza is just getting better and better. Kate says Aurelia's Sun King is the perfect thing to brighten up a dark corner. Not many dark corners this week, though. It's Midsummer Day and a heat wave. Liz Hall and Rosemary Rogers invited me to film their beautiful gardens in Boston Spa. Here's Liz and her garden first. And this is Rosemary, just round the corner in hers. This was to be one of our evening visits, but like all the rest, it was cancelled because of COVID. And if you haven't seen it yet, the full version is available on our website. It's well worth a look. Pat Gore's first entry into the gallery is very unusual. A mystery self-sown seedling was found in her garden, which was eventually identified by the Rose Society as a cross between Kifsgate and Ballerina. This massive, lovely rambler is the result, and let's call it Patricia. Most people sent pictures into the gallery because they really liked them. Here's a switch. Denise sent in this because she really hates it, but it's doing a wonderful job of covering up an ugly fence. She didn't actually know what it was though. Luckily Pat came to her aid. Apparently it's Lonicera henryi, very vigorous, a sort of hairy honeysuckle. Preston's contribution this week included this lovely lavender hedge. It's Lavandula Ashdown Forest. And here's Anne's submission for a plant to light up a dark corner. Senecio, Angel's Wings. Pat Gore must have liked it because she's back here for another week. This Sarracenia is flowering despite, as she says, or perhaps because of, the neglect. Diane told us she was grovelling around in the mud, in the rain, looking for the label for this beauty. Well worth it though. Iris harlequinesque. Here's another hardy plant that's well suited to cool cloudy weather. It's the water hawthorn. Lovely scent. Judith sent us some pictures with a cherry theme. This is Hosta, Cherry Berry. As the lockdown was eased just a little by the government, a few socially distanced visits could take place. First was here at Sue Gray's on the 10th of July, in some light rain. And here at Ruth Baumberg's in Leeds on the 13th. Meanwhile, Preston discovered that Inula hookeri is a magnet for insects. Pat Hunter went out to Breezy Knees, which can be found to the east of York at Wart Hill. Some huge borders there. This week, Sue Gray submitted Penstemon Staple for Gem. But Maggie Sugden submitted Penstemon Sour Grapes. But the RHS says they're the same thing. It's a proper sort of puzzle for a summer's afternoon. Perhaps with a glass of Pimm's? This is Ethel. It's a massive rambling rose, which has the great advantage of flowering after most of the other massive rambling roses are finished. Judith Ladley volunteers at York Gate. She sent us this glimpse of the new developments going on there this summer. Looking forward to seeing that when it's done. And this is a lovely picture of Hydrangea vinifraise in its vanilla phase. Not easy to say. And it was nice to welcome back Corinne Carson as her new garden began to take shape. A lovely blend of shapes, textures and colours here from Preston. It's the beginning of August and a triple garden visit to Kirklees has been planned. But then we were struck by a whole new level of lockdown. It specifically forbade us from meeting in other people's gardens. It's as if they knew. So here's a taster of what we might have seen. First, John and Joyce Kenny's garden in Denbydale. Here's Helenium Sahin's early flower, subject of a plant of the month this year. Here's Hydrangea Fanny Fraise. And here's another favourite hydrangea. It's Annabelle, actually managing to keep her many heads off the ground. You can't always say that. And this is Anne Lowe's garden in Honley. This is another one you were deprived of in August. Let's hope we can see it next year. Pat Hunter was the first to respond to a lovely suggestion that we should see what other gardens people have managed to get to despite the lockdown. This is Stonehouse Cottage near Kidderminster. Back at home, Kate showed us this begonia with very unusual foliage. It's Begonia pedotifida. Diane's return to work has been interfering with important things like gardening and contributing to the lockdown gallery, but she had time to show us her favourite rose, Comte de Chambord, and the wise words of a donkey. You can't argue with that. This week, Kathy Howard treated herself to a macro lens for her mobile phone. She immediately popped to the other side of the viaduct to visit the Kenny's garden, Woodroyd, and take some lovely pictures. Here's Hydrangea Fanny Fraise again as the colour begins to change. And Judith Ladley visited Duncan Townend's lovely garden in Rothwell. Denise Dyson discovered this new climbing rose, Mortimer Sackler. Gorgeous in August. Now it has been said, and with some reason, that anemone wild swan can be a bit of a lame duck. Sue Gray, however, showing it works for her. Despite the very autumnal weather, Liz Hall managed to find this exotic Cobia scandens, the cup and saucer flower. This is Dactylocapnos macrocapnos. It disappears for years and then comes back. It was bought from Roger Brooks, the no-dig gardener, on a day trip. Pat Hunter kicked off the autumn appropriately with these fine dahlias. And Preston continued on that line with Aster Twilight. But Judith Edmonds bucked the trend with this very late flowering lily, Casablanca. As we move into autumn, many roses are offering us a second flush of flowers. Francis King leads the charge here with this lovely Felicia. And here's the first colchicum of the season from Sue Gray. Lobelia syphilitica was used as a medicinal plant in its native America, but it's actually poisonous. Some tribes believe that if you put it into the food of an arguing couple, they will grow to love each other again. Don't try that at home. Preston led the way this week with some fantastic hydrangeas. This one is Hydrangea villosa. Maggie's crabapple John Downey is seriously confused. Having pruned it hard the month previously, she now has spring blossom and autumn apples at the same time. This could catch on. Similarly bewildered is Sue's Epimedium Arctic Wings. Shouldn't be out now, but since it's so long since it last actually did deign to flower, there's no complaint. Now this is Helianthus carene. Carene complains that Diane made her buy it on a holiday, even though she doesn't like yellow. Cunningly, Diane rebranded it as Lemon. Yes, can see that. Carene says, since it doesn't face the house and she can't actually see it, she might let it stay. Oh, come on, Kareem, what's not to like? Talking of Diane, she wonders if anyone knows what this is, a beautiful pink but very tall aster. You know, I think we've all got some of that courtesy of the auction. I don't know what it is. And Liz Hall rounds off our penultimate week with this beautiful and appropriately named Rosa Grace in the evening sun. So here we are. It's the end of September and the last week of the lockdown gallery. It was a pleasant surprise to welcome the very first entry from Brian Dennison, a lovely combination of Rebecca and Cosmos. Judith Labley offered Heliopsis Burning Hearts, which she says is an absolute favourite of hers with those lovely dark leaves. Sue Gray's garden continued to offer us rare treasures right up to the end. This is Colchicum Herbstküchel, which I believe means autumn pudding. Sounds better in the German, doesn't it? As the season came to an end, Preston, that most reliable of our contributors, offered this little glimpse of the future by showing us the first frost of the season 2019. And talking of the future, just in case any of you do happen to get a time machine for Christmas, here are a few sound words of advice to finish off with. And on those wise words, let me just say thank you so much to everybody who contributed to the Lockdown Gallery. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed this film. See you all next year. Have a happy Christmas.